Report episode 8 and a little something different. I'm showing my face actually, not just talking into a logo. Crazy. But anyways, I just wanted to speak on the future of the podcast. It is summer right now for me. I finished up classes about 2 weeks ago, and I was just getting the hang of summer. Kind of took a little bit of a break, just tired, exhausted from all the classwork, obviously. But I just took a little bit of a break before recording the first podcast of the summer, and that's what I am doing right now. I'm recording the first podcast of the summer, and I just want to speak about where this is going to go. Obviously, right now, I don't have any classes right now. I'm not taking any summer classes. I'm dumb, in my opinion. I don't want to do any summer classes. I was already exhausted from the semester. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing summer classes. Just going to wait till fall. So anyways, yeah. But I am working basically full-time this summer because, I gotta work. That's just stuff you gotta do. Adulting stuff, always fun. But my plan is right now is to record one podcast and have it up on a weekend, and record another one, have it up during the weekday sometime, basically like one during the week, and then one during the weekend. That way I can have at least 2 podcasts out technically per week, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm going to go for throughout the summer. Maybe try to upload a third one or get a live show going, something like that. But I got all kinds of things in the works that I want to do in the fall. Especially, I kind of want to do a live show in the fall too. But it's interesting how I want that play out in my brain, and I'm just gonna figure out. I gotta figure out the logistics of where I want to do that before I announce anything with that. But that's what's kind of in the works with the podcast right now. So I took a little bit of a break because, one, I was busy with school, and 2, I needed a break from just doing journalism stuff. So that's what I did. I took basically the week and just worked and just relaxed. But now I'm ready to go. And anyways, if you want to follow anything latest, I don't really post much about the podcast on Twitter or Instagram. But if you just want to follow me on those platforms, at CP4227 on Twitter and at PayneRcan427 on Instagram is basically my presence on both those social media platforms. But anyway, outside of that, I'm going to try to start posting more podcasts, start posting more about the podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to start probably having a bit more of a social presence. In fact, today, actually, I posted a couple things on Instagram. I just posted a couple pictures of beautiful campus here at Mizzou. It is such a pretty day. We had literally 7 days of rain and then one nice day, so I literally just spent the entire morning and afternoon outside before recording this episode. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about this episode, for episode 8, I'm going to talk about college football week 1 a little bit. I'm not going to talk about all the games because, I printed out the schedule and was going to make game picks, but literally I printed out the Saturday and a little bit of Monday slate, and it turned to 4 pages, and I'm like, I'm not predicting all those games. Not going to pick all those games, even though I kind of highlighted the ones I wanted to pick, because you just don't know. That's way too many games to predict, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is for each week in the college football season when I record a podcast, I'm going to take probably around 6 to 10 games what I find notable, and between the big schools and maybe a small school, between the small schools, and what notable games to look at, watch, stuff like that, and who I'll pick, and then one of those notable games I'll break down the big match. I'll break down one of the bigger matchups, which is what I'm going to do. You'll see in a bit when I do that. But that is the plan going forward for the college football season. I thought, why not just do week 1 now, get that out of the way. That way, when it's going into college football season, you're not just spending so much time on college football. Got the week 1 predictions, archive them, write them down, and be like, okay, here's the recap of that. I can recap stuff like that. That is the plan. Next, after that, I will be breaking down the UGA and Clemson game. So that kind of falls into that college football breakdown week 1, basically. After that, I'm going to talk about the Tennessee Titans, the 2021 lineup, kind of what to look for, stuff like that, because I am a Titans fan. We're going to talk about Titans on this podcast. That's just how it's going to roll and be, because I am a Titans fan, herein and hereforth, and I love that team. And out the podcast, I'm going to talk about Mizzou football, because I do go to Mizzou, and second, Mizzou's got a pretty interesting schedule and a team to look at when you're looking into 2021. Eli Drinkwitz is bringing a really good recruiting class. I believe his next one is actually, I believe this one and the next one are probably, I know they're the 2 highest the school has ever had, so he's an outstanding recruiter, especially winning recruits in the state of Missouri, unlike his predecessor Barry Odom couldn't. So that's a good thing there. And we're just gonna look ahead for 2021 schedule, kind of predictions, what I kind of expect from the Tigers there, and we're just gonna start out with that, and then I should have another thing. I'm gonna announce it towards the end of kind of what I have planned for next episode, because I kind of have an idea, but not like super yet. But anyways, let's just get right into college football week 1. So I decided to do pick 6 games out of the big list, because right now it's not super interesting. I mean, a lot of big schools are just playing cupcake teams. I mean, Missouri plays Central Michigan, Florida plays Florida Atlantic, Oregon plays Fresno State. Like, those are clear cut games. Big guys are gonna win, little guys probably gonna lose. So they're clear cut games. Outside of the big matchups, there's some interesting conference matchups. I believe Ohio State plays Minnesota week 1. Don't quote me on that. I've got the schedule right here, but I'm just not seeing it. It's kind of just lost in there. I know Michigan State plays Northwestern week 1, but there's a couple conference games in there. But it's outside of the big matchups, it's a lot of games to predict, and I'm just going to predict the 6 that I find notable. So the 6 that I find notable are Miami versus Alabama, UJ versus Clemson, UCF versus Boise State, LSU versus UCLA, Notre Dame versus Florida State, and Louisville versus Ole Miss. Those are 6 notable games that I find, and I apologize that I'm constantly looking down. I got my notes. I decided to take physical notes as opposed to just keeping it on a computer browser, because I like just keeping physical tabs on everything. But anyways, so those are 6 notable matchups. The first one, Miami and Alabama. I'm just going to pick Alabama for this one. It's a no-brainer. I mean, yes, they lost talent and lost Mac Jones, lost Vontae Smith, lost Jalen Waddle, but they got John Mechie, who is a good wide receiver. He broke out, but was a good number 2 after Waddle got hurt for Devontae Smith in his freshman year. And I think just another offseason, another basically training camp, spring camp, and just summer camp too with Nick Saban will definitely help his development. He's already a 5-star recruit probably. I don't know his star coming into out of high school, but he's probably a 4-star, 5-star because of Alabama. Good wide receiver there. And then they got Bryce Young, I believe was one of the top quarterbacks from last year's class, along with DJ Ugalagale. Pretty sure I said that wrong too, but we'll touch more on DJ in a little bit. But Bryce Young should step up. I think he's going to win that quarterback job. I'm surprised he didn't win it last year, but Mac Jones was obviously determined. He played pretty good too. So I think they just got a better quarterback than whoever Miami has. I can't even remember keep up with who Miami has. I know they had Darren King last year, but I don't think he came back this year, because I know he had another year of eligibility because of the COVID year. But I don't think he came back. I believe he declared for the NFL draft. But, so yeah, no brainer there. I'm picking Alabama. I'm not going to pick UGA Clemson. We're going to do a little bit of breakdown in a minute of that. But UCF versus Boise State, I mean, it's kind of like a toss-up here. You could pick UCF, pick Boise State. I picked UCF because I think they're just a little bit better team. Boise State wasn't really that good last year. I mean, they got blown out against BYU. So I'm picking UCF to win that game. Next one, LSU versus UCLA. Now, I'm not sure if this one's at LSU or UCLA, I believe, or if it's a neutral site. I'm not sure. But I tell you what, that's going to be an interesting game to watch. DTR, I can't remember his name, but I know that's his initials, for the UCLA quarterback, DTR, is an interesting quarterback. He's really good. I like him a lot. And Chip Kelly, he's an all right. He's a good college coach, obviously. It's not very stay in the NFL, but trying to turn UCLA around. I believe it's his 3rd season there right now. So that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, LSU's got a quarterback battle going on right now between Max Johnson and Miles Brennan. Miles Brennan came back, I believe, after he had an injury last year. He was actually lighting it up too. I believe through the first 2 weeks he had I believe he had 2 300-yard passing performances. I know he had a 300-yard passing performance in Missouri, and I know he had some 300-yarder against Mississippi State to open out last year. So it'll be interesting there who wins the quarterback job there. In my opinion, I would like Max Johnson because I watched that Florida game and Max Johnson was just lighting it up, and he lit it up against Ole Miss too in the last game. So I want Max, but I also like Miles Brennan too. So, but if it were me, I would lean towards Max Johnson. Just get the young guy a shot. Just give him more experience, and then worst comes to worst, you pull him, put Miles Brennan. Worst to worst, basically. But in that game, I'm picking LSU. I mean, LSU's probably got the better team. They got better playmakers. I believe his name is Keishawn Butte, the wide receiver for LSU. He went insane against Ole Miss. I watched him in that Ole Miss game. Dude was just a monster. I mean, he went for I believe it was 200 and something yards against Ole Miss. 10 catches, a couple touchdowns. He was awesome. It was fun to watch him in that Ole Miss game. And Max Johnson too. That was a fun connection to watch between Max Johnson and him. I really liked it. Next one, Notre Dame versus Florida State. Florida State's still rebuilding. It's just picking Notre Dame basically. No, Notre Dame lost Ian Book, but I believe they got a transfer guy. I can't remember where he's from. It's just striking a blank. But and they also got they always recruit quarterbacks too. Notre Dame, not a credible quarterback school, but they always got a guy playing quarterback. So, yeah. I mean, outside of losing Ian Book, they did lose an outside linebacker to the draft too. Lost a couple of guys on the outside. They still got some talent. They are just not good enough to be big bloods, in my opinion. I don't like Notre Dame that much. Not gonna lie. I am a kind of Notre Dame hater, if that makes sense, because they're just not the best school in my opinion, but I do think they'll beat Florida State. And last matchup, Louisville versus Ole Miss. This is kind of a fun matchup. I believe the Appalachian State head coach before Eli Drinkowitz. This is his third year, and it'd be interesting to see what he does there. I can't remember his name, but I know he coached at Appalachian State, and it's his third year. And this is kind of marquee game. If he wins this game, kind of starts out the season well. But also, I think Ole Miss too, the Lane train there. Lane Kiffin. It's a pivotal year. Year two's pivotal too. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup. I think it will be a high scoring affair. I do think it will be upwards into the 30s. I don't think it will be some 40, 50 something game. If that makes sense. Because it is week one after all. But I do think that will be a fun matchup to watch. That is the Monday night game, I believe. Yeah, 8 p.m. September 6th on Monday in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's likely the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl kickoff. So take it for what it is. I like Ole Miss in that game. I'm picking Ole Miss. So right now I got Alabama, I got UCF, I got LSU, Notre Dame, and Ole Miss. Those are my picks for those 5 games. And now we're going to break down Georgia versus Clemson. And oh man, this is going to be a fun matchup. Georgia and Clemson have not played since the 2013-2014 season, I believe it was. I know they played 2012-2013 at Clemson. Clemson won. And then they played the next year, and then it was at UGA, and UGA won. So that would be an interesting matchup to watch because you got DJ Uiagalelei. Pretty sure I said that wrong, but the sports world's going to get used to saying that name wrong. But also, eventually, some people are going to say it right, obviously. But right now, a lot of people are going to say it wrong, like I said it wrong. So you got DJ Uiagalelei going in his sophomore year. He played 2 games last year against Notre Dame, against Boston College. Looked good in both, but the Boston College game, he had to come back. Notre Dame game, they basically should have won, but had to fall back in that one too. So, JT Daniels is coming back for Georgia. JT Daniels had a great Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl performance, in my opinion. But he did lose George Pickens. So at quarterback, we got JT Daniels for University of Georgia. He's played more games than DJ Uiagalelei because JT Daniels played one entire season at USC and then played, I believe it was the last 4 or 5 games for Georgia when he was finally healthy. A lot better than what Stetson Bennett was doing and DeJuan Mathis was doing, I can tell you that, because Stetson Bennett is, there's a reason why he was a walk-on quarterback. Let's just say that. Because he could not complete anything outside the numbers. Like middle of the field, he was struggling. He didn't have the best arm, obviously, and he just couldn't. He can only complete passes really over the middle of the field. Couldn't really throw outside the numbers, and that's generally what happens with quarterbacks with not so strong arms and just struggling. They can't really throw outside the numbers. Can only throw inside the middle. So what you do is just cover up the middle, and they can't throw outside the numbers. So generally, you can shut down that kind of offense because you just put basically 7 in the box, stop the run, and not have to worry, but cover everything up in the middle. But anyways, JT Daniels, better replacement than Stetson Bennett. But DJ Ugoagale has the higher upside in my opinion because I mean you look at those games he played against Notre Dame, Boston College, he passed the ball great, ran the ball great too. So in terms of the quarterback matchup, I'm going to give it to Clemson just based on upside and what we've seen DJ do. He's dynamic. He can run and he can throw. He can't run as good as Trevor Lawrence, but he has a hell of an arm. Can run. Looks like I heard a lot of people saying like Dante Culpepper and what's his name? Blanking. He was a quarterback for the Vikings when they went 15 and 1 back in. I can't remember his name. Randall Cunningham. I think it was Randall Cunningham. He played for the Eagles too, so he reminds me of. I can see the Dante Culpepper comparison there. So and Randall Cunningham, I believe it kind of reminds me of. So DJ, he's got a big body. He can kind of use that size to his advantage, and he's just a good athletic runner too. Can throw the ball a mile. I believe JT Daniels is more of a pocket kind of guy. He's got some mobility, but he's not going to scare anybody with his legs, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to just edge it towards DJ Ugoagale over JT Daniels. But, I mean, quarterback matchups, basically, even at that point, I'm just leaning more towards DJ Ugoagale. Wide receiver, Georgia is not pretty. And that's kind of the theme with Georgia over the last couple seasons. I mean, going back to, heck, their national championship run. They have, I believe his name was Isaiah Wims. He was a speedster, but like that was all they really had. They had Riley Ridley there, but he never really made a huge impact. George Pickens was a good recruit for them, and during his freshman year, he was good with Jake Fromm, but he had some the field issues, just not off the field issues, character issues, and whole Georgia Tech fight. Everyone remembers that, and they really needed him for that the opening half against LSU in the SEC championship game. But everyone remembered he was suspended for that first half because of fighting that Georgia Tech quarterback. So character concerns, and he gets injured this camp, and it kind of just sucks because JT Daniels was playing really well with George Pickens. When you saw JT Daniels come in last season, George Pickens' numbers went up a lot. So JT Daniels was really comfortable just throwing the ball at George Pickens, letting him get it because he was a talent, obviously. I mean, outside of George Pickens, there's not a lot of talent. I mean, there's Jermaine Burton, Demetrius Robertson, and then there's another guy, Marcus Roseby Jackson. I believe that's his name. That's a name. Pretty cool name in my opinion, but unfortunately, just because you're a name doesn't mean you're a college football superstar. So it kind of just gets ugly because George Pickens is out for the full year, I believe, with a torn ACL. So outside of Jermaine Burton, Demetrius Robertson, there's not a lot of guys and even then, those are number 2 guys, number 3 guys at best. Georgia just hasn't had a lot of wide receiving threats. Now, Clemson, on the hand, Justin Ross is coming back. They got Joseph Nata. I cannot say his last name. I believe it's Nata. And EJ Williams. And those are some pretty good wide receivers right there, especially Justin Ross. He missed all of last year with a back injury, but he should be back and better than ever. I mean, you look at his freshman year against Alabama in a national championship game. It was amazing what he was doing. And then his sophomore year, followed up with a strong sophomore year. So I'm glad to see him come back for his senior year and just watch him play because I love Justin Ross. He was a fun wide receiver to watch, in my opinion. So I think Clemson nudges that out there, mainly because Georgia doesn't have George Pickens and just not strong guys, while Clemson has Justin Ross, EJ Williams, and Joseph Nada. Look at running back. Georgia obviously wins this matchup. I mean, there's no alpha dog in their running back room between Zamir White and James Cook, but they have a nice little 1-2 punch there. It's kind of like a mini version of Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel. Not Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel were pretty awesome that last year at Georgia did that national championship run. I mean, if you watch Georgia football like I did, that was a fun team to watch. But I think James White and Zamir White, not James White, James Cook and Zamir White are going to be a fun duo to watch. I expect a kind of 50-50 ball carry between them. They're better names, in my opinion, than what Clemson has. And Lynn J. Dixon and Cope Pace. So, I've heard the name Lynn J. Dixon, but I never heard Cope. No one knows who Cope Pace is. And, that's fine. He's a freshman, probably, or a redshirt freshman. So, just based on name and experience, Georgia has them Clemson beat at running back. So right now, at quarterback wide receiver, Clemson beats Georgia. At running back, Georgia wins. Offensive line, Georgia lost a lot of pieces on the offensive line. They lost, I believe, they just lost a lot of pieces on the offensive line. Not really returning a lot. Clemson's returning some starters on offensive line, but when you look at their offensive line from last year, they kind of really struggled in pass protection, and it showed in that Ohio State game. Trevor didn't have any time. The offensive line kind of struggled run blocking too. So I think that's where Dabo is kind of just struggling in recruiting. They got tremendous skills. They got the skill position players. They got, look at the recruit they've recruited the last couple of years. T. Higgins, Justin Ross, Mike Williams, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, all kinds of guys. Travis Etienne is another guy. Wayne Gallman's another guy. Jordan Leggett. List just goes on and just skill position players, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, where they're getting these guys, but it's just not come up in the offensive line room as well. Clemson's offensive line just never strike me as imposing a will on a team. Clemson's like it's a weird case. You never expect them to dominate someone on the ground. If that makes sense. You're not like Georgia, where they're just going to bully you up front in terms of the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball is a little bit different. But the reason why I'm going to say Georgia has a better offensive line than Clemson, because Georgia just consistently recruits offensive linemen. They're maulers. You look at the top 3 offensive lines in terms of just combined weight in the past couple seasons. Georgia's been in the top 3 in the country, along with Oregon, and I believe it's Penn State. I know Oregon's up there, so I know Oregon and Georgia have been the 2 of the top 3 in there in terms of just how big their offensive lines are. And to me, I feel like Georgia just has guys on the offensive line. It's just a lot of just loading. They just unload, load, reload. They just got a lot of guys in terms of, in my opinion, they can just plug and play in the offensive line because they got a lot of maulers, in my opinion. So I think Georgia, just based on how you look at the historical way Kirby Smart has recruited offensive linemen there, they got maulers. I believe they got a better line. So despite significant losses, that is chalked up for Georgia. So quarterback, wide receiver, Clemson, running back, offensive line, Georgia tied up 2-2. It's going to go down to defense and special teams. Georgia lost a lot on defense. They lost Richard Count, Eric Stokes. I'm not gonna pronounce the outside linebacker's name because I will butcher it. But I believe it's Ojuargie. I believe the name is. I can't remember his first name. That is his last name. He dominated Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl in the second half. He just dominated the right tackle and left tackles on Cincinnati. But the secondary is where they are really hurting, and for Georgia, they're losing Eric Stokes, they're losing Richard LeCount. Those are 2 key cornerstones on their defense, especially Richard LeCount at the safety position. So, I would expect them to reload. Georgia always has a good defense, so I expect them to reload there. But Clemson is returning 10 starters. And their top cornerback is Andrew Booth, who's coming back. He plays like a wide receiver at cornerback. You do not throw the ball at him; he will come down and pick it. And Brian Brees, one of the best D linemen in the country. I believe he's going into his sophomore year. So, I mean, how can you not pick Clemson there? I mean, return 10 starters. I mean, Georgia's right there in a close second because Georgia just shows the ability to reload every year with their defense. But I'm going to take Clemson there. Special teams, it's even. Each team, I believe they lost a specialist, but they also have returning specialists too, so I think it's even. So it just basically Clemson comes up with a 3-2-1 advantage over Georgia. And when you look at that, I think Clemson is going to win it here. I believe my final score prediction was 28-24 Clemson. It should be an exciting game to watch, especially Clemson's defense playing Georgia's offense is going to be fun to watch. And see how JT Daniels does without George Pickens. See how Georgia's run game does against Clemson's defense. See how Clemson's defense does against a top tier program. They haven't played the best against the top tier programs the past couple of years, but a lot of people are saying this is rivaling the 20 I believe it was 2018 2017-2018 defense where Clemson was really good on defense and had a lot of sacks that year. So a lot of people are saying that they are rivaling that. So I'm going to pick Clemson in this game 28-24. All right. I'm just going to flip through my notes, and we're going to transition here to the Tennessee Titans. I am a Titans fan. Been a Titans fan all my life, and we're just going to talk about basically the projected lineup that I got right here. So I'm just going to jump right into it. The 2020 Tennessee Titans went 11-5, won the AFC South, lost in the wild card round against the Baltimore Ravens. So that is where they're standing. They drafted Caleb Farley in the first round and Dylan Radunz in the second round for North Dakota State and Virginia Tech, respectively. Four of those players. Sorry, I keep taking sips of water. My mouth gets dry pretty easy. But anyways, the starting offensive line will be Taylor Lewan, Roger Sapple, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, and likely Dylan Radunz from North Dakota State. Rookie quarterback Ryan Tannehill is coming back. Derrick Henry's coming back for running back. Wide receivers where it get interesting. Got A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's clear-cut number one receiver in this league. Very good wide receiver. No worries there. Josh Reynolds coming over from the L.A. Rams. I'm going to break down a little bit of him in a bit. Slot receiver Nick Westbrook-Akina. Yikes. So the wide receiver, I'm a little bit concerned there. But I'm going to go in a little bit of that in detail in just a bit. At quarterback, you got Caleb Farley likely, Christian Fulton, and Janoris Jenkins. So very different cornerback room than what you saw last year with Malcolm Butler, Christian Fulton, and crap. Can't remember his name. Guy from Texas. I remember a lot of people. Desmond King, obviously. They had Desmond King, Dory Jackson for like 2 games because Dory Jackson was hurt all last year, basically. But I remember everyone just calling for this guy, the Titans side from the Texans. It was not good. Let's just say that the cornerback room was really bad outside of Malcolm Butler. Kevin Byard playing a full safety position. Amani Hooker plugging in at strong safety. Takes the spot of Kenny Vaccaro. I'm comfortable with Amani Hooker playing there. He came on last year with a couple picks, so I like that. I'm comfortable with that. Edge, a new acquisition, but Dupree, Harold Landry on the other side of him. So that's going to be looking for a 1-2 punch between those two. In the interior, we got Denico Audrey, who's just signed from Indianapolis Colts. I believe he's 30, but I am happy with that signing. It was just going to help free up Jeffrey Simmons, basically replacing DaQuan Jones there. Probably someone around the same caliber as DaQuan Jones, maybe a little bit better. With Denico Audrey, Jeffrey Simmons is returning. The team has brought back Jaylen Brown on a 1-year deal, and Rashaan Evans is going to his 4th year. His 5th-year option has not been picked up, but behind him is David Long, so who knows? Hopefully Rashaan Evans has a good year. But anyways, my concerns for this lineup are, everything looks solid in terms of just, not seeing a lot of holes on the roster. Just, more just depth pieces otherwise. Rookie right tackle, we're going to address it right off the bat. I'm fine with that. I I mean, if Lawan stays healthy, Southbold is solid. Ben Jones is solid. Nate Davis is going into his 3rd year, played great last year, and so that's a guy you're gonna have to pay down the line too. Hopefully Dylan Redunds. It's not going to be Isaiah Wilson from last year. They did lose Dennis Kelly, which is not. I mean, Dennis Kelly was good. He was good. He was a good tackle, good swing guy. He can play left or right side. But I like Dylan Redunds. I'd like to see what he can do. He's probably starting. If I can win that job, right tackle job, start out. So I'm just fine with that. Where I'm really concerned is wide receiver. The Titans brought in Josh Reynolds. He played for the Rams last year, Los Angeles Rams. He had 52 catches for 618 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's coming in to replace Corey Davis. And if you look at the production, it's not. It's a small gap, but it's not a good small gap in my opinion. Corey Davis had 65 catches, 984 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year. So you're not losing a lot in terms of touchdown value. I mean, the three touchdowns separate the two. Yardage is where Corey Davis was probably a better run after catch guy than Josh Reynolds. I mean, Corey Davis probably had better speed too than Josh Reynolds. So Josh Reynolds playing number 2, I just don't like it that much. And then slot Nick Westbrook-Akina, dude, that's like 1 touch. No, not even a touchdown. A 2-point conversion, I believe it was, against the Texans in like week 3. Pretty bad. And not week 3. I believe it was like week. I know after week 3 against the Vikings, the Titans had the COVID problems. So it was like around week 5 or 6 for the Steelers game. He just not. I don't like Nick Westbrook-Akina playing slot. I mean, they got Des Fitzpatrick. I do like Des Fitzpatrick. They drafted him from Louisville in the mid-rounds there. But, I mean, the wide receiver room outside of AJ is very thin. And my concern is AJ Brown. Teams are just going to hone in on him. They're going to double him, triple him. And who's team going to go through? Josh Reynolds and Nick Westbrook-Akina? Tight end is another, not a super spot I'm worried about. The team did lose Johnny Smith, which is significant. But Johnny, he had off and on performances. He never would show up twice in a row, if that makes sense. He would never consistently put up 100-yard games in a row. And to do that, you have to be to be considered a good tight end in the league, you have to do that. And so he was average in retrospect. They got Anthony Ferguson. Anthony Ferguson, in my opinion, is not as athletic as Johnny Smith, but he's a good, reliable tight end, good hands. So, not really worried about that spot there. I'm just more concerned of teams doubling A.J. Brown because they know outside of that, who's Tannehill going to go to in terms of wide receivers. Where another concern that I have, Janoris Jenkins specifically. I like the cornerback room, Christian Fulton and Caleb Farley. 2 young guys. I've seen Christian Fulton play at LSU. I've seen Caleb Farley highlights. At first, I didn't like the pick because I wanted Terrence Marshall or Elijah Moore. But I watched his highlights and I was like, okay, this is the guy. He's a dog. He can play good cornerback. I'm happy. So, I mean, when he was healthy, he was a top 5 pick. And kind of another similar situation as the team had with Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons, top 5 pick, got hurt training, and they get Jeffrey Simmons. But, so kind of similar aspect there. Caleb Farley and Christian Fulton, I am okay with. Norris Jenkins is what I'm a little concerned about, mainly because he's 32 and at a skill position on the defense, such as cornerback 32, is right when you start to fall off a little. So, yeah, I'm a little bit scared there. He did have 3 interceptions last year, and I believe he had around 50 solo tackles. So, hopefully, if he can be half as good as Malcolm Butler was last year, I'll take it. So, that is my big concern on the defense because I'm comfortable with Bud Dupree. I'm comfortable up front in the front 7. I'm comfortable with Marty Hooker coming in for Kenny Vaccaro. Honestly, the defense looks solid. I think just the facelift in the cornerback room was really just what was needed. Dory wasn't getting it done. Desmond King kind of just didn't look the best, especially in that Packers game. But Dory looked really bad in the Packers game. He just wasn't healthy all season either. And then when he did come in, he didn't play well. So that's take it as what it is. But I want to touch a little bit more on the wide receiver position. So a lot of people have been talking about Julio Jones, and if you haven't seen it, Derrick Henry basically posted "Tighten the F up," like in response of, "Hey, Titans are in the mix for Julio Jones." Basically, like that's one of the teams that could potentially target Julio Jones. And AJ Brown said, he looked up to Julio when he was coming up, and he would gladly give up number 11 for Julio. So I'm all for it. I like Julio Jones, and I don't care what you say if he's 32. If you look at 7 games, 9 games. Dude missed 7 games, but in 9 games, he had more yards than Josh Reynolds. He had 51 catches, one less catch than Josh Reynolds, but had 771 yards than Josh Reynolds. That's so much more better than what the yardage and what technically what Josh Reynolds had in a full 16 games out of 9 games. And even then, what do you call it? Julio Jones wasn't that far off from Corey Davis. Corey Davis had 984 yards. Julio Jones had 771 yards. So the thing is, Julio Jones is a generational talent. And if you look at the 9 games and you just take his averages from there, he was averaging 85.7 yards per game. And if you just take that average and basically average it out for all the 7 games that he missed and put it into a full 16 games, he probably would have finished the season around 1,300 receiving yards. 1,300, so 1,330 yards receiving. And he had 51 catches at the time. And he was averaging, I believe he was averaging around 5.7 catches per game. So if you average that out into the full season, it would be 124 catches. So you're looking at over 7 games. You just take the average of his games and what he was doing per game, 599 more yards and 39 more catches. That the production would have been insane. So if you just take that into accountability, it would be 1,300 yards, 124 catches through a full season. If you take what he was averaging through those 9 games and applied it to the 7 that he missed. At 31, that's really good. I believe he's going to turn 32. And the reason why I touched on it earlier with one of strength and skill position 32, all that little but scary, this is Julio Jones. Julio Jones has been an amazing talent. And like it or not, Julio Jones will have an impact if the Titans were able to trade for him. Because think about it. Julio Jones is a name. Impact guy. Defenses are going to circle him. It's going to help open up A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. He could have, 700 yards for the entire season and 4 touchdowns. But just having the name there, basically, to show he's still a threat. It's still basically towards the end of his prime. Still probably got 2 or 3 good more years out of him, obviously. But in my opinion, I wouldn't mind a trade for Julio Jones. I would be like, I'm not all in, and then I'll talk about the reason why. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I believe you can give up whatever. If the Titans gave up 2 first-round picks for Julio, I'd be happy. Titans gave up 4th-round pick for Julio, I'd be happy. If you gave up, I don't know, Josh Reynolds in a second and a first, I'd be happy. I would be happy with Julio Jones on this offense because it's just a name, it's an impact, it helps free A.J. Brown, frees up Derrick Henry. You got, defenses aren't just going to cover A.J. Brown and just put 7 in the box. Even though putting 7 in the box is not going to stop Derrick. But, literally, it just helps free up the other guys on the offense. That's what that's what some people fail to see with Julio Jones. I'm going to be like, oh, he's old, he's too old this, too old that. It's Julio Jones. And the fact that he would have put up 1,300 yards and 124 catches last year if he didn't get hurt, basically, that's just a rough estimate. He probably could have done a little bit more or a little bit less, but that's just a rough estimate. And that's still pretty good production of someone, and you wouldn't expect it to fall off, just down that bad. So, and that's where I stand on the Julio Jones take. I do think John Robinson, I don't think the wide receiver is going to be set. There could be a trade going into training camp, going into the preseason, and going into the season, or a free agent signing something. I feel like the team is going to bring at least one more veteran in. That's what I'm feeling. But the reason why I am a little, I wouldn't hate the move for Julio Jones, but I was listening to an OTP, the Official Titans podcast, and Mike Keith brought up this interesting point. Um, you gotta pay the guys that are on your team, and look who's coming up in the next couple of years. Rashaan Evans, if he plays well, they denied his fifth-year option, so if he plays well this year, the Titans have to bring him back. Jaylen Brown's on a one-year deal. David Long's another guy to look at. Harold Landry's going to be up soon, a second-round pick. Doesn't have that fifth-year option. The team just brought in Bud Dupree. Jeffrey Simmons is going to be up soon. The team already, I believe the Titans already exercised the fifth-year option. If they haven't, they probably will. You look at Nate Davis is going to get a payday, and A.J. Brown's going to get a payday. So you're looking at Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, potentially Rashaan Evans, hopefully Jayon Brown, A.J. Brown, and Nate Davis getting paydays, basically. And the Titans already don't have a lot of cap, and the cap's going to go up around to where it was. I believe it's going to go around to $198 million to $200 million again the following season. And Julio Jones is going to make a base salary of $15 million. That's going to be his base. So going down the line, we got A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, Rashaan Evans, Jayon Brown. That's about six corner, not like cornerstones. There's six key guys the Titans team right there, especially A.J. Brown, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, and Nate Davis. Those are going to be big keys, and so that's the downside of bringing in Julio. You're gonna have to take on that lofty contract and you're gonna lose some guys. You're gonna lose 4 to 5 of these guys, and not bring back all 6. Bringing back all 6 is already gonna be tough, but I think it can be done. J-Rob has done it in the past, but that's gonna be the tough thing with bringing in Julio Jones. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate bringing in Julio Jones, but if the Titans do bring in Julio Jones, they better win now, basically, is what I'm saying. Because the young core, you gotta bring back the majority of that young core, and it's just you got to. I mean, A.J. Brown's a legitimate number 1 receiver. Could you imagine bringing in Julio for 2 years, but not being able to re-sign A.J. Brown? That would suck, because Julio would still be good for probably another year. You lose A.J. because we have around. The Titans brought in Julio Jones. They probably have 2 seasons with A.J. And A.J., if you couldn't bring him back, you would have Julio for 1 more year, and that'd be it. Titans would be stuck at square one because A.J. Brown is legitimately the number 1 receiver the Titans haven't had in a long time. Probably the best number 1 receiver the Titans have ever at this point. I mean, people say Derek Mason, Kevin Dyson, but A.J. Brown's a freak. He is a freak. He is like Javon Curse on the offensive side of the ball, basically. He is the freak. So, or imagine not being able to bring back Harold Landry. Harold Landry is just on the cusp of breaking out, and I think bringing in Bud Dupree is going to help him do that. Not bringing back Jeffrey Simmons, who's basically Jarrell Casey out there. He plays exactly like Jarrell Casey, and I love it. But or imagine not bringing back Jayon Brown. Jayon Brown, great cover linebacker. I'm pretty sure we don't want to go back to the days of Avery Williamson. So yeah, that's just where I stand on that. I wouldn't hate the move, but God, I wouldn't hate it, but I also wouldn't love it, if that makes sense. I'm not against it, but I'm sort of against it. So, and I'm going to go into the last topic. First, I'm going to take a little bit of a drink. Just take a little sip of water, refresh my mouth after all that talking. Mouth got dry. So, Mizzou football 2021 schedule. This is going to be a fun team to watch, in my opinion, in 2021. You look at the schedule at first glance; it's very doable. In week 1, they got Central Michigan at home. Go to Kentucky next week. Got Southeast Missouri at Boston College, Tennessee, North Texas. Texas A&M travels to Columbia, then at Vanderbilt, at UGA, South Carolina, Florida, and then at Arkansas. So, I mean, you're looking at it. Mizzou probably will likely beat Central Michigan, beat Kentucky, beat Southeast Missouri. I'll talk a little bit in the Boston College matchup in a bit. Probably will beat Tennessee, probably beat North Texas, probably beat South Carolina, probably beat Vanderbilt, and will probably beat Arkansas. So you're looking at least around at least 9 wins. At least 9 wins right off the bat. That's really good. Where it gets dicey, I put a question mark by the Boston College game. I would expect Mizzou to win this game, though. The only reason why is Boston College, they had their second-year head coach, so kind of similar thing. They played all right last year, not insanely great. I believe they had a losing record, but at one point they did have I believe it was a 20-6 lead or 21-6 lead against Clemson, but ended up still losing 34-28 last year. So I would chalk it up a win for Mizzou. That's the only reason why I kind of put a question mark is because at Boston College, a little bit dicey there. But it's in September, not like November, which is great because it won't be like super freezing cold. I mean September, warm weather. So I would expect Mizzou to win the game. So at first glance, 9 wins, great. Now this is where it can get. I got basically 2 flip games. Texas A&M can go either or, and Florida can go either or. I would expect Mizzou to beat South Carolina, and I just don't think Mizzou's going to go into UGA and beat Georgia. So that's where I'm at on that. But let's just break down the opponents. Central Michigan, cupcake, that's a win. Going to Kentucky, it was a tough game last year for Mizzou. It was a good defensive bout. I think it was a gritty game. That I wasn't expecting Mizzou to win, actually. I thought Kentucky was going to beat Mizzou going into that game. And it was a nice little gritty win. It shows that Elijah Drinkowitz can win those gritty football games, that it's not just like Gus Bus, put up 40 points a game shootouts. No, they can win those defensive matchups. Southeast Missouri, that is, it says family weekend in quotation marks, so I would expect a win there. I got the schedule all printed out right here. Going next week, going into Boston College, I think they'll beat Boston College. Like I said, kind of a similar thing, but I don't think the head coach of Boston College is recruiting nearly as well as Elijah Drinkowitz. I believe Elijah Drinkowitz has the best class in Mizzou history coming in, and the year following it is really good too. So I would expect them to beat Boston College. Tennessee game. The reason why I say Mizzou beats Tennessee, even though they got blown out against Tennessee last year, don't really know what's going on at quarterback. I know there's no Jarrett Garambano, and even then he wasn't really that good. I don't know what's going on at quarterback. Josh Heupel's a new head coach. You just don't know what's going on. The program has been in disarray. Tennessee hasn't been relevant in like the last 20 years anyways. So, yeah, I'm going to chalk that up for a win for Mizzou. North Texas is homecoming weekend. I would not expect Mizzou to lose to North Texas. If Mizzou lost to North Texas, I'd be mad. And, I'm going to be going to some of these games too, so I'm hoping to see a lot of victories. But I'm playing basically a cupcake school on homecoming weekend. I would expect Mizzou to win that game, especially since, homecoming started at Mizzou. I don't care what people at Baylor say. Mizzou started homecoming. We do homecoming best. We're just the best at homecoming. No one can match us, okay? We are the best. Because we started it. It's ours. Not yours, Baylor. Okay? We started homecoming. Baylor did not. Texas A&M, that's going to be a fun game to watch. And the reason why I say this is a toss-up, because I believe this is going into year 4 for Jimbo Fisher. But you look at who they've lost. It's mainly quarterback is going to be the big question mark. They lost Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond never struck me as a guy that would put, he just never really scared me in terms of, a defensive guy. Yes, he can put up yards and just touchdowns, but it's just prone to turning the ball over, in my opinion. Never, really, there's quarterbacks where you're okay, he's going to light up every single week. Kellen Mond wasn't, like that for me. I mean, he was a good college quarterback, and I hope he does well in the pros, too. I believe he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, but he, never struck me as, that guy that would, be oh, it's Kellen Mond. They're better quarterbacks than Kellen Mond is what I'm getting at. Still a good quarterback, but they, Texas A&M loses a good quarterback in Kellen Mond, obviously. So that's the big question mark. And Mizzou doesn't have to worry about losing that quarterback. They're returning Connor Bazelak, and they got a couple guys that came in, but I would expect Connor Bazelak to have this job, fully have this job. So it's at Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri. Hopefully it turns into a nightcap game, because that would be fun. And I know Faroe Field is going to be at 100% capacity. That's going to be exciting to watch. That is probably a game I'm going to go to. I want to go to that game really bad. I want to go to the Texas A&M really, really bad, and just see it. I feel like it's going to be a close game. I believe last time Texas A&M played at Mizzou clinched the spot in the SEC championship game the first time when they played Auburn. So kind of just, if Mizzou wins this game, it could be a real building block. Like, this is a culture-defining game. I mean, if you look at coaches in year 2, a lot of them have done well. I mean, look at what Kirby Smart did at Georgia in his second year. He went to a national championship game and won a Rose Bowl. But I think what really turned the corner for Georgia that season was the Mississippi State game. When Mississippi State came into Athens, and game day was there. It was hyped up. It was supposed to be a close game. And Georgia just beat the brakes off of Mississippi State. So I think if Mizzou goes into this game and they're underdog here and they beat the crap out of Texas A&M or beat Texas A&M, this is a turning point for the program. And we're looking at Mizzou being back, back to relevance, and hopefully competing for a call, but competing in SEC East not only, but potentially college football playoff. Because if they beat Texas A&M, they can beat anybody in the SEC, in my opinion, at that point. Because you beat the big bad team from the SEC West, and that's a lot of confidence. If Mizzou beats Texas A&M, they would again play Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt, so a glorified home game. And Mizzou is not the Mizzou from a couple years ago where they lost to Vanderbilt. Ugh. Barry Odom was a horrible coach, in my opinion. Barry Odom was not a good head coach. He was a good defensive coordinator. That's just about it, sadly. But think about the momentum carrying into that. We carry that into Vanderbilt, likely blow out Vanderbilt, and then go in. I believe it's it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-0 going into Athens, potentially undefeated matchup between two top 25 teams. College game day is probably in Athens. That could be. And if Mizzou wins that game, that Mizzou would be back at that point, and Mizzou could beat anybody in the country, in my opinion, at that point. So the Texas A&M game is going to be pivotal. Mizzou loses that game, it's just going to hurt. So that's a flip-flop there. So I'm not going to pick that game until it is time to pick that game. That's what I'm going to go for. So going into next week, playing Vandy, blowout. Like I said, Mizzou blew them out last year. They came to Vanderbilt. Mizzou blew out Vanderbilt came to Missouri. My bad. Vanderbilt came to Missouri. It was the homecoming game, I believe. Yes, it was. Oh no, it was supposed to be the homecoming game. My bad. But it got canceled because of COVID. Well, basically rescheduled because of COVID. But so Mizzou's not losing to Vanderbilt ever again, hopefully. But that's not going to happen this year. So you're looking potentially going into the Georgia game. You're either 7 or 8-0, 7-1 or 8-0. And the Georgia game, I'm going to say right now, I'm going to re-pick it during the season, but right now it's going to be a loss. The reason why is because Georgia's just bigger up front. You looked at last year. Mizzou played Georgia tough for the first 2 quarters, and then then Georgia just basically got pissed off and said, you know what? We're going to run behind our offensive line, and we're going to bully you up front because we're bigger up front, and that's exactly what they did. They ran the ball, and just punched Mizzou in the mouth. So until I see, and until basically, I'm going to re-pick the game, obviously. Like I said, if Mizzou wins that game against Texas A&M, that's going to be an interesting matchup to that point then, because that shows they can compete with the guys that are big in the trenches. Because Texas A&M was pretty big in the trenches too. So, but right now, it would be a definite loss on that schedule. Mizzou beat South Carolina last year. South Carolina wasn't really a good team. They played an interim coach, I believe it was. It was his first week there after they fired Will Muschamp. So that is what it is. So Mizzou will probably likely beat South Carolina. It's in Columbia too. Florida. The reason why I say Mizzou beats Florida, no doubt, is because, well, uh, I have it chalked up as a win or loss, but I'm leaning more towards win as opposed to loss, basically. It's mainly because Florida lost Kyle Trask, lost Kyle Pitts, lost Kadarius Toney. They just lost a lot of talent, especially in the offensive level. Lost some talent on the defensive side of the ball, lost slew of talent on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, losing starting quarterback, starting tight end, and a starting wide receiver. And I believe they lost Trayvon Grimes, too. Don't quote me on that. They may have lost Trayvon Grimes, but it is what it is, and that's the problem you got. When you have talent, you're gonna lose talent, and I just don't believe in Dan Mullen's thing of reloading. I just don't. I saw this the other day. Dan Mullen will talk like Spurrier, and he will coach like Will Muschamp. I saw that a couple months ago. It was hilarious, and it's right. I mean, I mean, you look at it. Every time Florida has been like on the cusp of being Florida again, of competing for a national championship, they gave her to Georgia Hump last year. It's great for them. But they lost to Texas A&M, Atkins A&M. Probably should have won that game. And then they lost to LSU. LSU was horrible last year. I mean, they lost so much talent from a national championship team. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jamar Chase opted out to start the season. And to that point, Terrence Marshall opted out for the rest of the season going into that Florida game. It was just a bunch of freshmen playing at that point. And literally, Florida lost. Florida lost because a guy threw a shoe. So, Dan Mullen's going to make your program relevant, but Dan Mullen's not winning a national championship. And I will stay by that until he wins a national championship, basically. I will eat crow if that time ever comes, but Dan Mullen's not going to win a national championship at Florida. I can guarantee that. And I will gladly eat crow if he wins a national championship at Florida. So, I think Mizzou can beat Florida, especially since it's in Columbia. Final game of the year. It is the border battle between Arkansas. Mizzou beat Arkansas in a wild game last year in Columbia. It was a fun game to watch. I believe Mizzou came down from 14 down at one point. They came down from 2 touchdowns, basically. And it was a fun game to watch. I watched it on TV. I was like, heck yeah. Larry Roundtree was just tearing up Arkansas on the ground. And, yeah, I think Mizzou would just come out with that win. I think Sam Pittman's doing a good job at Arkansas right now, bringing them back to relevant a little bit. A lot better than where they were a couple years ago. So I think Mizzou likely will win that game for the third or fourth year in a row. So I think Mizzou will win that game. So, I mean, you're looking at potentially 11-1 record at the best, in my opinion, and at worst, 9-3. That's really good for Mizzou football, in my opinion, especially considering where they were at basically not even 2 seasons ago, about a season ago. So, I think they got a favorable schedule. They got a lot of guys coming back. They did lose a couple guys in the draft. They lost Nick Bolton, going to fill that spot. Lost Larry Roundtree. Tyler Beatty should come in and play that spot really well. Mizzou's got a lot of talent coming in at wide receiver, a lot of talent coming in at the line, especially over the next 2 years. Connor Bazelak is back, and so I'm excited to watch Mizzou football. I think Mizzou football should be a fun team to watch next year. And there's potential Texas A&M is a flex night game, and Mizzou can be 8-0 going up against an 8-0 Georgia to that point. Watch out. It will be fun. But anyways, this has been concluding the first podcast of the summer of the Payne Report episode 8. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope y'all like to listen. And just again, follow my Twitter, follow my Instagram, stuff like that. Thank you for listening, and have a great evening.